Hi. Do you ever think that God put thin people on the earth as a punishment to people who are overweight? I mean, how many times you look around, whether at the mall or at the market, grocery shopping, or at the movies, and you notice how skinny everyone is? I didn't have any fat friends growing up. All my friends were thin. I don't know why, it just happened that way. Sometimes I used to just hate them, even though they were my friends, because they would sit there and they would eat more than I was eating, and they stayed skinny. Well, as I told you before, God has a lot of cookie cutters up there. And some people were cut out to be thin, and some people were cut out to be overweight. Now that doesn't mean it can't be changed, but it also doesn't mean that just because you're heavy, you have the right to hate people who are thin. Here's an example. Suppose you're married to someone who's thin. Should your sin spouse suffer just because you're on deal meal? I mean, they can pretty much eat anything they want, and don't gain an ouch. Should you hate that spouse for that? Of course not. Should you punish all the people in your home because you're trying to lose weight? No. Should you ban all snacks or forbid all the foods that tempered you, who even though your family can eat them? Come on, be realistic. Your family is there to support you and help you if you really commit to losing this weight. You can't turn on them and think that they're the enemies just because they're thin. I got this letter from a man who wrote to me and was really complaining because his wife was on deal meal and he was happy she was trying to lose weight. But he said he couldn't stand me. Well, I was so upset, I had to pick up the phone and call him. And I said, I can't stand you. I can't stand deal meal because my wife has forbidden me to bring ice cream in the house or any other things I like to eat. The entire family is being punished because she's on deal meal. If you're doing the same thing to your family that this lady was doing it, you've got to stop that. You can't hate or punish your thin friends or family members just because you're trying to lose weight. If you think that they should suffer just because you can't be thin as they are, then you're being very unfair to people who really do care about you. You can't stop your family from having the foods they like. From having the foods they like because it might tempt you. If the kids want pizza one night for dinner, for crying out loud, it's not fair to forbid them from having it. You can have some too, as long as you remember portion control. You know, we've talked about how people sometimes put down fat people. We've talked about forgiving people who hurt you. But it goes both ways. Overweight people sometimes put down thin people too, and that is just as bad. Have you ever heard yourself saying any of these things? Well, look at her. She's skinny as a rail. It must be something wrong with her. Or no one can possibly be that thin. I bet that woman over there. I bet she's anorexic. Or how about she's so skinny I can't stand her. If you ever said these things, and I want you to take a minute and think about what you're saying. First of all, hate is a negative word, so it shouldn't even be in your vocabulary. Second, if a person is anorexic, they need your help, not your sarcasm. And finally, most thin people are thin because they watch what they eat and they exercise. You can't hate a person for doing the right thing. When you say that you hate someone because they're skinny, what you're really saying is that you're angry with yourself for being overweight. Now think back, remember how hard you were when people said rude things about your weight. Imagine how a thin person must feel when you say something unkind about them. Now there's lots of reasons why people are thin. Just like there's lots of reasons why people are overweight. Some people are just naturally thin. They have a metabolism that burns up energy and fat faster than most people. A lot of times people who are very thin would love to put on some weight. You may even know someone, a family member or a friend, who has tried and tried but just can't gain any more weight. You mean you may know someone who is anorexic or bulimic. Heck, bulimic. Believe me, these are serious problems which often needs to be treated by a doctor or sometimes even in the hospital. So you see, being so thin that you can't gain an ounce isn't as glamorous as you might think. There's one more thing I'd like to talk to you about. In the subject of thin friends and family. I know that all of you, no matter how much weight you have to lose, don't want people to hate you because you're overweight. Isn't that true? We want people to accept us for who we are, the kind of person we are deep inside. Now, it's not what we look like. That's not what this is all about. If this is true for overweight people, and the same thing is true for thin people. Look at your thin family members and friends, and love them for who they are, and look to them as inspiration to help you reach your goals. Because fat, thin, well, they're just words. It's who you are inside that really counts.